to this live podcast on Twitch, where you can find the news from the research industry that how our researchers keep on researching on various domains and various topics to help to of course improve our lifestyle. So, and yes, these articles are posted on our website named postscientist.com. If you are willing to check it out, please check it out. Otherwise, listening to this podcast will be enough for you guys because it acts like an archive on the daily basis provided to you who are not able to read this article in their free time. So, uh, put uh, put your headphones and start listening to it. Automated carbohydrate synthesizer produces polysaccharides of record-breaking length. Hmm. A team of researchers with member of Peking University at Vyung Aptech Tingen Co. Limited has designed and built an automated carbohydrate synthesizer that produces polysaccharides of record-breaking length. In their paper published in the journal Nature Synthesis, the group described how they built their device and its possible uses. Han Chao Chang and Peng George Wang with the Southern University of Science and Technology in China have published a news and views piece in the same journal issue outlining the work by the team in China. As Chang and Wang note, carbohydrate plays an important role in biology. They are a biochemical source of energy, and as they also note, naturally occurring carbohydrates tend to structurally undefined, which means they are made up of mixture of molecules, making them quite complex. For this reason, well-defined carbohydrates are prized. Unfortunately, synthesizing them has proven to be difficult, most particularly as they grow larger. In this new effort, the researchers have created a means of speeding up the process and automated synthesizers, one that overcomes problems associated with other machines meant to do the same. The synthesizer created by the team has three parts: a synthesizing system, a system for monitoring progress, and software that is used to control the hardware. The synthesizer involves a strier and heat control and a lamp that is used to incite light induced reaction. It also has an automated injector system for controlling the delivering of materials into the system and an automated cleaning system to prevent contamination. The synthesizer works by a computer controlling the flow of reagents into a container and managing the growth of snake-like monosaccharides. The monitoring system continuously studies the reactions that are taking place to ensure they are being done correctly. One of the advantages of using a such system, Chang and Wang note, is that it has no need for protection groups, which are masks used on reactive parts. In manual process, such groups tend to add extra step to the process, making it more complicated. The result is better yield and longer glance. Testing of the device showed it capable of creating polysaccharides made up of 1080 sugar moiets, which includes 4320 stereogenic centers, the longest type of gland synthesized to date. The team also used their device to create some drugs that are already on the market in a more efficient manner. Okay, so basically we are pulling down on automated carbon. The researcher find out consume the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or the solid state, whatever the state is, uh, come out from the automated carbohydrate synthesizer and producing polysaccharides, which is made up of 1080 sugar moiets and also includes 4320 stereogenic centers. So what these are the uh, these are the properties it's included in the polysaccharides, and wherever the wherever this energy or wherever this atom will be gonna use in various application, because I don't familiar of this familiar of this polysaccharide application. I will be make sure read it. But the these are the things which is coming out from atmosphere carbon dioxide or whatever is taking the state into it. So it's an interesting thing, because we have to consume that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and consume for our use. So yep, it's going to be for our sustainable environment, of course. So okay, moving on towards the next topic. Study of the meteorite suggests Earth composition was changed by collision, collisional erosion. Hmm. Okay. Okay. A team of researchers from the University Claremont, Arizona, working with a colleague from Universitat Bayreuth, has found evidence that suggests the Earth composition changed over the time during its early years via collision erosion. In the paper published in the journal Science, the group described their study of the amounts of samarium and neodymium in meteorites and what it showed them about the process that lead to the current makeup of the Earth. Zhu, Malka, Lynn Harrant with the University of Bristol has published a perspective piece in the same journal issue outlining theories regarding the formation of Earth and the work done by the team of this new effort. Interesting. Prior research has suggested that planets form from collision of material in accretion disks that build up around stars during their early years. The characteristics of such collision are believed to play a role in the resulting makeup of the resulting planets, such as the tilt angle. Prior research has also shown the Earth has a core of iron and nickel. Surrounding that is a layer of iron silicate mixed in with magnesium. The top layer is described as a layer of silicate. The density of the material decreases from the core to the crust, which Lynn Harrant notes makes the crust more vulnerable during collision. Prior research has also uncovered a mystery: why does the crust contain heavier minerals? A theory has suggested that they may have been pushed upward due to incompatibilities with other materials. Unfortunately, these theories do not explain why there are higher quantities of some minerals in the crust, such as nodium, that then there should be based on how much can be measured in the core. Of course, three main theories have been developed to explain this anomaly. One suggested it is an illusion. There is actually more of it in the core that can be measured. Another suggests that it is because material of the accretion disk had difference in makeup. The third suggests that has a heavier metal were pushed up and accumulate in the crust. Some were knocked into space during new collision. Okay, in this new effort, the researchers have found evidence supporting the third theory. They measured the amount of neodymium in meteorites, assuming they are similar in makeup to Earth building blocks, and found that up to 20% of Earth's outer layers could have been removed by collision, which would explain the ratio of heavy minerals such as nodium in the crust compared to other lighter minerals such as samarium. Hmm. Moving on towards next topic. Pacific Ocean said to make way for world's next supercontinent. Okay, let's see. New Curtin University led research has found the world's next supercontinent, Amasia, will most likely form when the Pacific Ocean closes in 200 to 300 million years ago. 200 to 200 to 3 million years uh, uh, after, yes. Published in Natural Science Review, the research team used a supercomputer to simulate how a supercontinent forms and found that because the Earth has been cooling for billions of years, the thickness and strength of the places under the ocean reduce with time, making it difficult for the next supercontinent to assemble by closing the young oceans such as the Atlantic or Indian Oceans. Lead author Dr. Chan Hung from Curtin Earth Dynamics Research Group and the School of Earth and Planetary Science said the new findings were significant and provided insights into what would happen to Earth in the next 200 million years. Over the past 2 billion years, Earth continents have collided together to form a supercontinent every 600 million years, known as the supercontinent cycle. This means that the current continent are due to come together again in a couple of hundreds of millions years time, Dr. Huang said. The resulting new supercontinent has already been named Amasia because some believe that the Pacific Ocean will close as opposed to the Atlantic and Indian Ocean when America America collides with Asia. Australia is also expected to play a role in this important Earth event, first colliding with Asia and then colliding America and Asia once the Pacific Ocean closes. By simulating how the Earth tectonic plates are expected to evolve using a supercomputer, we were able to show that in less than 300 million years' time, it is likely to be the Pacific Ocean that will close, allowing the formation of Amasia, debunking some previous scientific theories. The Pacific Ocean is what is left of the Penthalasia superocean that started to form 700 million years ago when the previous supercontinent started to break apart. It is the oldest ocean we have on Earth. Okay, and it started shrinking from its maximum size since the dinosaur time. It is currently shrinking in size by a few centimeters per year, and its current dimension of about 10,000 kilometers is predicted to take 200 to 300 million years to close. Co-author John Curtin, distinguished Professor Zheng Li, also from Curtin School of Earth and Planetary Sciences, said that having the whole world dominated by a single continent mass would dramatically alter Earth ecosystem and environment. Okay, Earth as we know it will be drastically different when Amasia forms. The sea level is expected to be lower, and the vast interior of the supercontinent will be very arid with high daily temperature ranges, Professor Lee said. Currently, Earth consists of 7 continents with wildly different ecosystems and human cultures, so it would be fascinating to think what the world might look like in 200 to 300 million years' time. Of course. Moving on towards next topic, researcher unveil mystery inside lithium oxygen batteries. With a high energy density, lithium oxygen batteries have become a state of the art battery technology. Inside the lithium oxygen battery, the generation of the disintegration of the discharged product solid lithium peroxide, lithium oxide, have a significant effect on the battery performance. Previous research has shed little light on lithium oxide form and distribution inside, leaving a question regarding the trend and contributing factor of internal lithium oxide charge in form and size unanswered. Researcher, sorry, Recently, a team led by Professor Tang Pang from the University of Science and Technology of China (USTC) of the Chinese Academy of Science designed a carbon-coated anodic aluminum oxide (CaAO) air electrode with a high-ordered array-like structure. The team gained new insight into the sudden death and reaction routes of lithium oxide batteries. The work was published in Nano Letters. The research team designed a special CaAO electrode that breaks easily yet preserves its distribution of products enabling lithium oxide observation throughout the entire electrode using the electrochemical impedance spectroscopy (EIS). Uh, the team determined the contributing factor to certain voltage drop and depth at various current densities. Research findings show that a small current channel diameter restrict the growth of toroidal lithium oxide, causing electrode blockage. So there is certain that is in voltage is associated with a large charge transfer impedance and concentration polarization caused by electrode blockage, while in while at high currents the sudden death is attributed to the less significant charge transfer impedance and concentration polarization from the fast electrochemical reactions. Additionally, in order to find the mechanism of such reaction, the research team carried out detailed analysis on the growth model of lithium oxide on the end surface and the interior of CaO electrode. Lithium oxide on the end surface is found in three toroidal model. The most common one grows hugging the walls, forming an incomplete ring. The rest either grows laterally on the surface or in the form of nuclei forming on the other lithium oxide surface. As the current density amplifies, toroidal lithium oxide inside the electrode is likely to covered by its fluctuated counterparts, indicating that lithium oxide is produced along the surface of the electrode rather than from disproportionate nation inside channels. The team proposed a new growth of toroidal lithium oxide in which lithium oxide formed at the lithium oxide electrode interface during early growth is related to the surface route, followed by the lithium peroxide lithium oxide in um, solution disproportionating around lithium oxide particles covering the surface root and forming an incomplete ring. This research provided answer to long-standing questions regarding the mechanism lithium peroxide batteries, as well as insight into further electrode designs. Hmm. Okay, moving on towards next topic. Study report first evidence of social relationship between chimpanzees and gorillas. Hmm. A long-term study of pre-mentologist cricket's Sands at Washington University in St. Louis reveals the first evidence of lasting social relationship between chimpanzees and gorillas in the wild, drawn from more than 20 years of observation at Nobel Nudike National Park in the Republic of Congo. Researchers documented social ties between individual chimpanzees and gorillas that persisted over years and across different contexts. The research was conducted by the scientists from the Washington University, the Wildlife Conservation Society, the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, and Lincoln Park Zoo, Chicago, and is reported in the journal iScience. There are few, if any, studies of interaction between primate species that have been able to take the identity of individual into account, says Sands, a professor of biological anthropology in arts and science. It has long been known that these apes can recognize individual members of their own species and form long-term relationship with that, but we had not known that this extended to their species, to other species. Okay, yes, of course. An example of what we found might be one individual traveling through a group of other species to seek out another particular individual. She said she were also able to document such interaction over time and in different contexts in this study. Most people didn't recognize that the majority of remaining gorillas and chimpanzees reside together. The large tracts of forest in the Congo Basin are a conservation stronghold not only for these two kinds of endangered great apes but also forest elephants. leopards, and many other species. The government of the Republic of Congo and Wildlife Conservation Society have worked together for nearly 3 decades to save wild places that sustain the local people, protect natural resources, and buffer global climate change. In a review of published reports combined with a synthesis of previously unpublished data about daily follows of chimpanzees and gorillas from 1999 to 2020 in the Golo Triangle, scientists documented eight species engaging in a wide range of social interaction ranging from play to aggression. Researchers investigated several possible benefits of these interspecies rendezvous, including protection from predation, improved foraging options, and other social benefit from information sharing. What they learn shows us that no ape is an island. Rather than thinking about chimpanzees alone, we should be thinking about them within diverse and dynamic habitats where they are actively engaging with other species, play an integral role in the persistence of the unique ecosystem in which they exist, said co-author David Morgan, research fellow at Lincoln Park Zoo. Why interact at all? One of the key theories that have been suggested for why apes might choose to associate with members of different species is to avoid predators, but information gathered in the study suggests the social interaction can't be chalked up to threat reduction. The scientists found little support for the idea that chimpanzees or gorillas are associated to decrease leopard, snake, or raptor predation attempts. Predation is certainly a threat in the region, as we have cases in which chimpanzees have been killed by leopards censored. However, the number of chimpanzees in daily subgroups remains relatively small, and gorillas within groups venture far from the silverback, who is thought to be protector from predation. Instead, enhanced foraging opportunity seems to be more important. The researcher found that co-feeding of the same tree represented 34% of interspecific association that they documented, with another 80% of observation involving apes foraging in close spatial proximity but on different foods. At least 20 different plant species were targeted by apes during co-feeding events in the study. Great, greatly expanding researcher knowledge of the diversity of resource that chimpanzees and gorillas are willing to gather together to share. In addition to a greater diversity of interaction than previously documented among sympatric apes, the study revealed social relationships between members of different species that persisted over years. For example, study author noted that on several occasions at food sources they observed young gorilla and chimpanzees seeking out particular partners to engage in bouts of play. These type of interaction may afford unique development opportunity that extend the individual social, physical, and cognitive competencies. Yes. No longer can we assume that an individual ape social landscape is entirely occupied by a member of their own species, said co-author Jake Finghonser, a doctoral candidate of the biological anthropology at Washington University. The strength and persistence of social relationships that we observed between apes indicates a depth of social awareness and married social transmission pathways that had not previously been imagined. Such insights are critical given these interspecies social relationships have the potential to serve a transmission pathways for both beneficial socially learned cultural behavior and harmful infectious disease. Concerns about disease transmission. Certainly, social exchange between apes have their risk. One is the potential for disease transmission, while poaching and habitat loss still represent the large threats to apes. Infectious disease has recently emerged as a threat of similar magnitude because chimpanzees and gorillas are closely related. Many pathogens can be transmitted between them. Ebola, for example, is a highly transmissible virus that has had a devastating impact on ape population in Central Africa just over 20 years ago. Ebola emerged in wild ape population and then spread to humans. By some estimates, that wave of the Ebola virus wiped out one third of the world chimpanzees and gorillas. While we continue to the concerned about many discrepancies, we now know much more about the origin of many of these pathogens and routes of the transmission within and between species, including humans and said, of course. In this study, the surprise to us was the extent of overlap and interaction that occurred between these apes that was previously not recognized or reported, she said, because on the literature we had anticipated that the apes would avoid one another, and in some cases it seemed to be the opposite, coexisting comfortably. Studying coexisting great apes may inform us about interaction between some early homins. Said study authors said there has been a long history of paleoanthropology of assuming that early homins would completely exclude each other from using the same product, same resource in the same areas. But if modern days observation with no human apes are informative about the behavior of early modern humans, and then this study suggests this interaction would have most likely occurred in the tolerant social context. Science emphasizes the continuing importance of longitudinal study to understand chimpanzees and gorilla behavior and ecology, but also to protect these apes and their habitats. Despite more than 60 years of chimpanzee and gorilla research, there is still much to be learned about these fascinating apes. The main challenge of this time is to ensure the conservation of the endangered species so that such opportunity exists for future generations, he said. Of course, right. So these are the study or the evidence of the how chimpanzees and gorillas have a species who being again for improving the lifestyle or for improving the behavior science and everything. So yep, moving on towards next topic. Superaged brains contain super neurons. Neurons in an area of the brain responsible for memory known as extra entorhinal cortex were significantly larger in superagers 80 years and older compared to cognitively average peers. Individuals with early stage Alzheimer's disease and even individual 20 to 30 years younger than superagers, reports a new Northwestern medicine study. These neurons did not harbor tangles, a signature hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. The remarkable observation that superagers showed larger neurons than their younger peers may imply that large cells were present from birth and are maintained structurally throughout their lives, said lead author Tamar Geffen, an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral science at Northwestern University of Feinberg School of Medicine. We conclude that larger neurons are a biological signature of the superaging trajectory. The study of superagers with exceptional memory was the first to show that these individuals carry a unique biological signature that comprises larger and healthier neurons in the entorhinal cortex that are relatively void of tangles pathology. The study will be published September 30 in the Journal of Neuroscience. The Northwestern Superaging Research Program studies unique individuals known as superagers who are 80 plus years old, who show exceptional memory at least as good as the individual 20 to 30 years their junior. To understand how why people may be resistant to developing Alzheimer's disease, it is important to closely investigate the postmortem brains of superagers. Giffen said. What makes superagers' brain unique? How can we harness their biological traits to help elderly stave off Alzheimer's disease? Scientists studies the enco- entorhinal cortex of the brain disease. It controls memory and is one of the first locations targeted by Alzheimer's disease. The entorhinal cortex comprises six layers of the neurons packed on top of one another. Layer second, in particular, receive information from another memory centers and is a very specific, crucial hub along the brain memory circuit. In the study, scientists showed that superagers harbor large, healthier neurons in layer second of the incortical cortex compared to the same aged peers, individuals with early stages of Alzheimer's disease, and even individual to 20 to 30 years younger. They also showed that these large layer second neurons were spared from the formation of tau tangles. Taken together, the findings suggest that a neuron spared from tangle formation can maintain structural integrity, that is, remain healthy and large. The inverse also seems to be true. Tau tangles can lead to neuronal shrinkage. Participant in the superager study donates their brains for research. Further study scientists examined the brain of six superagers, seven cognitively average elderly individuals, six young individual, and five individual with early stages of Alzheimer's. They then measured the size of neurons in the layer second of the entorhinal cortex compared to layers third and fifth. They also measured the presence of tau tangles in these cases for reasons that remain unknown. Cell population in the entorhinal cortex are selectively vulnerable to tau tangle formation during normal aging and early stage of Alzheimer's. In the study, we showed that in Alzheimer's, neuronal shrinkage, entropy in the entorhinal cortex appear to be the characteristics maker of the disease. Giffen said, "We suspect this process is a function of a tau tangle formation in the affected cell, leading to a poor memory ability in older age." Giffen said, identifying this contributing factor and a very every contributing factor is crucial to the early identification of Alzheimer's, monitoring its course, and guiding treatment. Future studies are needed to understand how and why neuronal integrity is preserved in superagers. Given want to focus on probing the cellular environment, what are the chemical, metabolic, or genetic features of the cells that render them resilient, she asked. She also plans to investigate other hubs along the memory circuit of the brain to better understand the spread of or resistance to disease. So these are the findings that stated by the superage brains that of course who are living their life more than 100 years or more than 90 years. These are the things stated that how this characteristic inculcated in or inherit in this person, so we can uh, practice those things or otherwise accumulated in that brain through machine technology or AI or whatever you like to say. But it's more like it's stated that we can use that practice, I mean use their lifestyle as a ideal lifestyle, so that the person live more longer and doesn't have any disease in their lifetime. So yep, these are the things we need to focusing we should focusing on, otherwise it will be more complex of course. Okay, moving on towards next topic. Researcher developed non-invasive blood glucose monitoring process. Hmm. As a child, Mario Valerio witnessed her diabetic father prick his finger several times a day to draw blood and check his glucose levels using an electronic monitor. She was concerned about the invasive and playful process, but was also curious about the technology behind the device. After watching my father go through that, I wanted to create something less invasive, said Valido, the assistant professor of information and technology in Kennesaw State College of Computing and Software Engineering (CCSE) and director of KSU IoT as a service research group is working to improve the glucose monitoring process for the millions of people around the world affected by diabetes. Using a lot of trial and error, Valido and her team created non-invasive process that can identify the exact value of of blood glucose with 90% accuracy without taking a blood sample. The glucocheck process uses light shown through human tissues in either the ear or finger and a small camera to capture images on the other side. Valido team then use a model to study the amount of light observation in those images to determine blood glucose concentration. Our pilot study was very successful, she said. We are excited about how this device will help people with diabetes, which affects about 1 in every 10 people in the United States. Villado and her team recently filed a provincial patent application with the US Patent and Trademark Office. To protect the process, they created a director of Kenso State Office of Intellectual Property Development. Chris Cronson helped Villado sift through research projects around the world to make sure the glucocheck process is unique and patentable. The way we gather and output the data is novel, and we will continue to work on ways to improve the glucose estimation model. Villado said the team has tested the process on nearly 50 people so far, but before filing a full patent next summer, they will assess how the process works on the people with a range of skin pigmentation and skin thickness. Villado students have already created a mobile phone application and working on connecting glucocheck to Amazon virtual assistant Alexa. I'm a very fortunate to have a great student who are extremely motivated and bring a wealth of knowledge to this project, Villado said. Watching them grow, a researcher who want to make a difference in the world using technology is very rewarding. According to Paolo Splantini, interim assistant dean of CCSE, Villado commitment to her research is compounded by her dedication to her students. Dr. Villado is passionate about using technology to make a difference in the world, and she is an incredible asset to our college. Splantini said. Not only is she developing cutting edge technology, but she also serves as a mentor and role model to her students. In addition to her students, Villado has worked closely with Hussein Shahriyar, Associate Professor of the Information Technology, and Catherine Ingram, Assistant Professor of Exercise Science. Ingram is currently researching gestational diabetes risk, and Sharia research focusing on health information technology, data analytics, and cybersecurity. Their paper detailing the pilot study was recently accepted by Jimir Formative Research. Interesting. Okay, moving on towards next topic, because we need to cover lots of articles today, so there is not less time to explain everything in detail. Okay, health and social service should be designed to be sensitive to people, shames experts urge. Okay, health and social service should be designed to be more sensitive to the shame felt by their clients, patient, and service user. Expert have said using a shame lens can transform interaction between professionals and those they work with. According to a new study, the research says being more aware of the impact of shame will doctors, and other care professionals manage interaction and relationship with more empathy, humanity, and sensitivity. This is particularly relevant for professionals working with trauma informed approaches, training care professional to have shame competence would involve giving them a theoretical and practical understanding of what shame is, how it operates, how it is evoked, how it can be hidden, and understand the behavior that can use to cope with shame. The study, published in the journal Humanity and Social Science Communications, was conducted by Luna Dolezal from the University of Exeter and Matthew Gibson from the University of Birmingham. Dr. Dolezal says that not only the shame a barrier to accessing service, but it also very easily exacerbated and incarnated in the context of seeking help from professionals. Interaction with a care professional can compound feeling of shame, as their interaction often involve unequal power relationships, a fear of being judged, the scrutiny and exposure of the one potential shameful past circumstances, coping behaviors, body illness, along with other vulnerabilities. Dr. Ginson says that having the capacity on the level of policy, organization, and individual practitioners to address shame directly is imperative, considering that how impactful shame can be for those who have experienced trauma and post-traumatic states. Being attentive to shame and acknowledging its significance for an individual in the health and social science context can improve both engagement and outcomes. Using a shame lens can help those who can work with help to redesign service to be more sensitive and supportive, with the ultimate aim of avoiding additional trauma and harm. The study says doctors, social workers, and other care professionals should become aware of the common verbal, non-verbal cues that may indicate shame. This include physical tics such as covering the face, blushing, and downcast eyes. They should also be aware of word people as instead of shame, self-conscious, embarrassed, foolish, worthless, inept, inferior, and stammering, silence, and long pauses. Of course, they must remain alert to and continuously assess how the language they use, their demeanor, cautioning style, emotional expression, and other interpersonal dynamics may inadvertently produce a shame response. Organization must also continuously assess for implicit and explicit shaming, intervening to eliminate intentional or inadvertent shaming from their policies and practices. Right. These are the things given by this research, that how a person need to be uh, need. Yes, so these are the requirement for the depressed people, of course. Otherwise, who is not going to be uh, actively focusing on studying on those things and actively participating on those kinds of activities. Exploring Europa possible with silicon germanium transistor technology. This is the next topic. Okay. Europa is more than just one of the Jupiter's many moons. It's not. It's going to be, of course, astronomy topics. So let's read it. Euro- Europa is one of the Jupiter many moons. It's also one of the most promising places in the solar system to look for extraterrestrial life. Under 10 kilometers of ice is a liquid water ocean that could sustain life, but the surface temperature at -1 degree Celsius and with extreme levels of radiation, it's also one of the most inhospitable places in the solar system. Exploring Europa could be possible in the coming years thanks to new application for silicon germanium transistor technology. Research at Georgia Tech Reagan's professor John D. Kressler in the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering (ECE) and his students have been working in the silicon germanium heterojunction bipolar transistor for decades and have found them to have a unique advantage in an extreme environment like Europa. Okay, interesting. Due to the way they are made, these devices actually survive those extreme conditions without any changes made to the underlying technology itself, said Kressler, who is the project investigator. You can build it for what you want it to do on Earth, and you then can use it in space. Of course, the research are in year one of the 3-year grant in the NASA concept for Ocean World's life detection technology called TECH program to design the electronic infrastructure for upcoming Europa surface mission. Oh, interesting. NASA plans to launch the Europa Clipper in 2024, an orbiting spacecraft that will map the ocean of Europa and then eventually send a landing vehicle, Europa Lander, to drill through the ice and exploring its ocean. But it also starts with electronics that can function in Europa extreme environment. Of course, Chrysler Chrysler and a student, together with research from NASA Jet Propulsion Lab (GPL) and the University of Tennessee (UT), demonstrated the capability of si- uh, silicon germanium silicon germanium heterojunction bipolar transistor for the hostile environment in a paper published at the IEEE Nuclear and Space Radiation Effects Conference in July. Okay, interesting. Europa Challenge, like Earth, Jupiter, also have a lipid metal core that generates a magnetic field, producing radiation belts of high energy protons and electrons from the imp- imping solar wind. Unfortunately, as a moon of Jupiter, Europa sits squarely in the radiation belts. In effect, any technology designed for Europa surface would not only need to be able to survive the cold temperature but also the worst radiation encountered in the solar system. Fortunately, silicon germanium heterojunction bipolar transistor are ideal for the hostile environment. The silicon germanium SGI, I simply stated this as SGI, so it will be not again be explaining it. So yep, introduces a nanoscale silicon germanium alloy inside a typical bipolar transistor to nano engineer its properties, of course, effectively producing a much faster transistor while maintaining the economy of scale and low cost of traditional silicon transistor. Silicon SGI HBT have the unique ability to maintain performance under extreme radiation exposure, and their properties naturally improve at colder temperatures, such as a unique combination make them ideal candidates to Europa exploration. It's not just doing the basics. Silicon germanium works, Crystal said. Of course, it's actually developing electronics for NASA to use on Europa. Yes. We know silicon germanium can survive high levels of radiation, and we knew it remains functional at cold temperature. What we did not know is if it could do both at the same time, which is needed for Europa surface missions. Okay. Testing the transistor. To answer this question, the GT research used GPL dynamitron, a machine that shoots high flux electrons at a very low temperature to test silicon germanium in Europa type environments. Yes. They exposed silicon germanium heterogeneous bipolar transistors to 1 millionth volt electrons to a radiation dose of 5 million rads of radiation and 200 to 400 rats in lethal to human. At 300 to 100 and 115 kelvins minus 160 degrees Celsius. What had never been done was to use electronics like we did in that experiment. Yes, Kressler said. So we worked literally for the first year to get the result that are in that paper, which is the essence, definitive proof that what we claimed is in fact true, that silicon germanium does survive Europa surface conditions. In the next 2 years, the GT and UT researcher will develop actual circuits from silicon germanium that could be used on Europa, such as radios and microcontrollers. Yet more importantly, these devices could then be seamlessly used in almost any space environment, including on the moon and Mars. If Europa is the worst case environment in the solar system, that and you can build these to work in Europa, they will work anywhere, Kressler said. This research ties together past research that we have done in my team here at Georgia Tech. For a longer time, it shows really interesting, novel application of these technologies. We pride ourselves on using our research to break new, innovative ground and thereby, enable novel application. Of course, it's an interesting research. Sorry, interesting discovery and research, and it's going to be used for the Europa mission. So it's a very very proud moment for them. What a break. Not a research article, it's a simple news. So let's read it. Hack puts Latin American security agency on edge. Okay. A massive troll of emails from Mexico Defense Department in among electronic communication taken by a group of hackers from military and police agencies across several Latin American countries. Mexico President confirmed Friday. The acknowledgement by President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador comes after child government said last week that emails had been taken from its chief of staff. The Mexican president spoke at his daily news conference following a local media report that the hack revealed previously unknown details about a health scare he had in January. Lopez Obrador downplayed the hack, saying that there nothing that isn't shown. He said the intrusion apparently occurred during a change of defense department system, but Child was so concerned by the breach to its own system that is called its defense minister back from the United States last week, where she was attending the United States General Assembly with President Gabriel Boric. The 10 terabytes of data taken by the group also include emails from the militaries in El Salvador, Peru, and Colombia, as well as El Salvador National Police. The Mexico portion of the data appeared to be the largest. A group of anonymous self-described social justice warriors who call themselves Guka Maya says they use hacking to expose injustice and corruption in defense of indigenous people. Hacker using the same name previously hacked and released in the mails of a mining company long accused of human rights and environmental abuses in Guatemala. In a statement, a, accompanying The most recent action, the group complained by the plundering of Latin America, where it refers to as Avea Yella by colonizers and the continuing extra activist goals of the global north. The group issued a 1400 word communique saying that the militaries and police of Latin American countries, often with extensive training by the United States, are used by government to keep their inhabitants prisoners. The police minimize the risk that the people exercise their honorable right to protest or to destroy the system that oppresses them, the group wrote. The group said it would make the documents available to the journalists, but so far only a tiny portion has been reported, in part perhaps because of the sheer quantity of the data. In an email exchange, the hackers said that their review of the Mexico emails so far indicated that much of the information was already publicly available, and they doubted they were explosive emails, possibly because more sensitive communication were better protected. Okay, but they said there was evidence of the military closely following political and social movements. They said those include relative of 43 students who were kidnapped by local police and allegedly handed over to be killed by a drug gang in 2014, a case in which some military officers have been accused of involvement, as well as separatist rebel movement that stated a 1994 uprising in South Mexico and Southern group opposed to Lopez Obrador current efforts to build to restrain around the Yucatan Peninsula, rather than seeing monetary benefit or ransom for comprising government information system through a cyber attack. Guka Maya appears to be more of a hacktivist hack and leak operation with social justice goals. Lopez Obrador was responding to a television report by Mexican journalist Carlos Lord de Mola, who said among the hacked emails were medical records about the president, including a previously undisclosed emergency air flight to the capital from his ranch in January, when he was suffering serious chest pains and at risk of a heart attack. Later that month, he underwent a heart catheterization, which was made public, but at the time was described as the result of routine examination. Lopez Obrador suffered a heart attack in 2013 and has high blood pressure. The 68-year-old president noted at his new conference that he suffered from a number of ailments and undergoes checkups every few months. Okay, moving on towards next topic. What reptiles' bones can teach us about Earth Paleo's past? Interesting. Let's see. An extinct reptile's early shaped com- compers, fingers, and ear bones may tell us quite a bit about the resilience of life on Earth, according to a new study. In fact, paleontologists at Yale, Sam Houston State University, the University of the Witwatersrand, says the 250 million year old reptile known as Paleocrodon fills is in an important gap in our understanding of reptile evolution. It's also a signal that reptiles, plants, and ecosystem may have fared better or recovered more quickly than previously thought after a mass extinction event wiped out most of the plant and animal species on the planet. We now know the Paleocrodon name comes from one of the most lineages to branch of the reptile tree of life before the evolution of modern reptiles, says Kelsey Jenkins, a doctoral student in the Yale Department of Earth Planetary Science in the Faculty of Arts and Science, the first author of the study, which appears in the Journal of Anatomy. We also know the Plankton lived in the wake of the most devastating mass extinction in the Earth history, that would be the Permian Triassic extinction events, which occurred 252 million years ago, known as the Great Dying. It killed off 70% of the terrestrial species, of 95% of marine species, although a large number of reptile species eventually bounced back from the extinction event. The details of how that happened are murky. Research has spent decades trying to fill in the gaps in our understanding of key adaptation that enabled reptiles to flourish, about the Permian Triassic extinction, and what those adaptations may reveal about the ecosystem where they lived. Plankton may help answer some of those questions, Johnson said, but first she and her colleagues had to get a better look at the little reptile. Until recently, what was known about Plankton came from the examination of cranial fragments from fossils found in South Africa and Arizona. The information gleaned from those fossils was so limited, however, the Plankton was left out of most scientific analysis of the reptilian evolution. For the new study, Jenkins and her colleagues, including corresponding author Bharat Anjan S. Bullard, assistant professor of Earth and Planetary Science at Yale and assistant curator at the Yale Peabody Museum of Natural History, brought a new analytical approach to bear in examining plankton. Specifically, they used computer tomography, CT scanning, and microscopy to analyze the most complete plankton specimen, a fossil from Antarctica. Bullard's lab at Yale, in particular, known as for its innovative use of CT scanning and microscopy to create 3D images of fossils. Jenkins and Bullard also did field work in South Africa and southwestern US relating to Palacrodon. Using the technology for the study, the research were able to obtain characteristics of the reptile teeth as well as other physical features. It revealed the plankton teeth were best suited by grinding plant material, and that the reptile was likely capable of occasionally climbing or clinging onto vegetation, they said. Plankton unusual teeth and a few other specialized features of its anatomy indicated it is likely herbivores or interacting with plant life in some way. Jenkins said this signals the early rebound of plants are and a more broadly rebound of ecosystem following this mass extinction. Jenkins said the study points to a need for further examination of fossils from the time period just after the Permian Triassic extinction event. Interesting. Very interesting. Moving on towards next topic. Sorry guys, water break. Traumatic Traumatic brain injury remains major global health problem, says expert. A new report highlights in advances and challenges in prevention, clinical care, and research in traumatic brain injury, a leading cause of injury-related death and disability worldwide. The report by the 2022 Lancet Neurology Commission have been produced by world-leading experts, including co-lead author Professor David Menon from the Division of Anesthesia at the University of Cambridge. The Commission of document traumatic brain injury (TBI) as a global public health problem which affects 55 million people worldwide, cost over US $400 billion per year, and is a leading cause of injury related death and disability. TBI is not only an acute condition but also a chronic disease with long term consequences, including an increased risk of the late onset neurodegeneration such as Parkinson's disease and dementia. Road, tra- road traffic incidents and falls are the main causes, but while in low middle income countries, road traffic accidents account for almost three times the number of TBIs as falls in high income countries. Falls cause twice the number of TBIs compared to road traffic accidents. These data to have clear consequence for prevention. Over 90% of TBI are characterized as mild, but over half of such patients do not fully recover by 6 months after injury. Improving outcome in these patients would be a huge public health benefit. A multidimensional approach to outcome assessment in advocated, including a focus on mental health, post traumatic stress disorder outcome after TBI is poorer in females and compared with males, but reasons for this are not clear. Professor Menon said, traumatic brain injury remained a major global health problem with a substantial impact on patient, families, and society over the last decade. Large international collaborations have provided important information to improve understanding and care of TBI. However, significant problems remain, especially in low middle income countries. Continued collaborative efforts are needed to continue to improve patient outcomes and reduce the social impact of TBI. The Commission identifies substantial disparities in care, including low treatment intensity for patients injured by low energy mechanism, deficiency in access to rehabilitation, and inefficient follow up in patients with mild TBI in low and middle income countries. Both pre hospital and pre acute care are largely deficient. The Commission presents substantial advances in diagnostic and treatment approaches. Blood based biomarkers perform as well or perhaps even better than clinical decision rules for selecting patients with mild TBI for CT scanning and can thus help reduce unnecessary radiation risk. They also have prognostic value for outcome. Genomic analysis suggests that 26% of outcome variable in TBI might be heritable, emphasizing the relevance of host response, which is modifiable. Advanced monitoring of the brain in patients with severe injuries in the intensive care setting provides better insight into derangements of brain function and metabolism, providing a basis of individualized dualising management to the need of the patient. The advances have, however, not yet led to improved outcome. Mortality in patients and with moderate to severe injury appears to have decreased about, but a great number of survivors may have substantial disability. Emeritus Emeritus Professor Andrew Maas from the Antwerp University Hospital and University of Antwerp, Belgium, said improving care pathways and removing current disparities in care of patients with TBI will require close collaboration between policymaker, clinician, and researcher with input for patient and patient representatives. Professor Geoffrey Manley from the University of California, San Francisco, and Zuckerberg, San Francisco. Okay. Uh, General Hospital and Trauma Center, US said this commission represents true team science involving over 300 authors and contributors from around the globe working closely with the team of lens and neurology. Much of the data reported come from large scale collaborative studies illustrating the strength of longer term observational research. There were no doubt that multidisciplinary international collaboration is the way forward. Okay. I mean, moving on towards next topic, non-opioid compounds sequence pain without sedation. Oh, okay, fine. A newly identified set of molecule elevated pain in mice while avoiding the sedating effect that limits the use of opioids. According to a new study led by the researcher at UC San Francisco, the molecule act as the same receptor as clonidine and dexmedetomidine, drugs commonly used in hospitals as sedatives, such as chemical unrelated to them and may not be addictive. Okay, clonidine and dexmedetomidine are also both effective painkillers, but so sedating that they are really used for the pain relief outside of the hospital. Okay, we showed that it's possible to separate the analgesic and sedative effects related to this receptor, said Brian Shordeck, PhD professor in the School of Pharmacy and one of four senior authors of the study, which appears in the September 30, 2022 issue of Science, that make it a very promising target for drug development. The research began shortly before the COVID-19 pandemic with this aim of finding effective painkillers that can be used together or in conjunction with opioids. The work bring together research from the variety of disciplines. Scheduled co-authors include UCSF anatomy chair Alan Bessabum, PhD chemist Peter Gimmer of Frenzel Alexander University in Germany, structural biologist Yang Du, PhD of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and molecular biologist Michael Bouvier, PhD of the University of Montreal. Yes. Together, we were able to take this from the most fundamental level to identify new molecules that might be relevant, and then to demonstrating that in fact they are relevant. Said Basabam, that doesn't happen very often. Six molecules out of a 300 million. Shortened Schoichet was encouraged to look of the substances that would activate this androgenic receptor called alpha 2A by Busbaum, who had studied it in his lab and showed that it is tied to pain relief. To start the research for molecules that would bind firmly to the receptor, Schoichet computational combed through a virtual library of over 300 million molecules, eliminating those that were too bulky for the small receptor. The remaining thousand were virtually docked one by one on a computer model of the receptor. Through a series of the tests, Schoichet narrowed the field from an initial 48 candidates to 6 based on how they bound to the receptor in cultured human and mouse cell. Each of the final 6 was tested on 3 different mouse models for acute and chronic pain. The successful elevated pain in all 3 instances. The pain revealing molecules, which were from chemically different families, are also entirely novel. None of them had previously been synthesized, whereas the older drugs like dexamethasone activate a broad spectrum of neuronal pathways. The new molecules triggered over a selective subset of these. Short said the molecule also concentrate in the brain and bind tightly to the receptor, making them good candidates for further development. Hope for 1 in 5 Americans. Busman cautions that it maybe take several years of research before any of the compounds could be tested in clinical trials. The research don't yet understand possible side effects of the new molecules, whether they might be unintended consequence from long-term use. He believes, however, it is unlikely the compound is addictive. Substance abuse happens when the drug generates a reward which we didn't see an evidence of, he said. While opioids clearly help patients with pain from surgery or cancer, Besman noted that the majority of the 15 million Americans with chronic pain have other conditions like back injuries, joint pain, and inflammatory disease that often aren't helped by the drugs. New analgesics could completely change the outlook for these patients. If we can create a drug that works in combination with a much lower dose of opiate, that would be the dream, he said. The need for that is huge. Okay, moving on towards the next topic. Stretchy bio-inspired synaptic transistor can enhance or weaken device memories. Okay, let's see. Robotics wearable device might soon get a little smarter with the addition of stretchy wearable synaptic transistor developed by a Penn State engineer. The device works like neurons in the brain to send signal to some cells and inhibit others in order to enhance and weaken the device memories. Led by Kunjeng Yu, Dorothy Quigley, Career Development Assistant Professor of Engineering, Science and Mechanics, and Associate Professor of Biomedical Engineering of Materials Science and Engineering. The team designed the synaptic transistor to be integrated in robots or wearable and use artificial intelligence to optimize function. The details were published September 29 in Nature Electronics. Mirroring the human brain, robots were and variable device using the synaptic transistor can use its artificial neurons to learn and adapt their behaviors. You said, for example, if we burn our hand on a stove, it hurts and we know to avoid touching it next time. The same result will be possible for device that use the synaptic transistor, as the artificial intelligence is able to learn and adapt to its environment. According to you, the artificial neurons in the device were designed to perform like neurons in the ventral tegmental area, a tiny segment of the human brain located in the uppermost part of the brain stem. Neurons process and transmit information by releasing neurotransmitters at their synapses, typically located at the neural cell ends. Excitatory neurotransmitter triggers the activity of other neurons and are associated with the enhancing memories, while inhibitory neurotransmitter reduce the activity of other neurons and are associated with the weakening memories. Unlike all other area of the brain, neurons in the ventral tegmental area are capable of releasing both excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter at the same time. You said, by designing the synaptic transistor to operate with both synaptic behaviors simultaneously, fewer transistors are needed compared to conventional integrated electronic technology, which simplifies the system architecture and allow the device to conserve energy. To model soft, stretchy biological tissue, the research used stretchable bilayer semiconductor material to fabricate the device, allowing it to stretch, and twist while in use. According to you, conventional transistors, on the other hand, are rigid and will break when deformed. The transistor is mechanically deformable and functionally reconfigurable, yet still retains its functions. When stretched extensively, you said it can attach to a robot or variable device to serve as their outermost skin. Okay, moving on towards next topic, a computational shortcut for neural networks. Going to be once again quantum computers. Yes. Neural networks are learning algorithms that approximate the solution to task of training with availability data. However, it is usually unclear how exactly they accomplish this. To young Basel physicists have now derived mathematical expressions that allow one to calculate the optimal solution without training a network. Their result not only give insight into how those learning algorithms work, but could also help to detect unknown phase transition in physical system in the future. Neural neural networks are based on the principle of the operation of the brain. Such computer algorithms learn to solve problems through repeated training and can, for example, distinguish objects or process spoken language. For several years now, physicists have been trying to use neural network to detect phase transition as well. Phase transition are familiar to us from everyday experience. For instance, when water freezes to ice, but they can also occur in a more complex form, better between different phases of magnetic material or quantum systems. Where they are often difficult to detect. Julian Arnold and Frank Schellschult, two PhD students in the research group of Professor Dr. Christoph Bruder at the University of Basel, have now singly handled derived mathematical expression with which such phase transition can be discovered faster than before. They recently published their result in the Physical Review X. Skipping training save times. A neural network learns by systematically varying parameters in many training rounds in order to make the prediction calculated by the network match the training data lead into its more and more closely. Their training data can be pixels of pictures or in fact the result of measurement on a physical system exhibiting phase transition about which one would be likely to learn something. Neural networks have already become quite good at detecting phase transition, says Arnold, but how exactly they do it usually remains completely obscure. To change the situation, the shine some light into the black box of a neural network. Arnold and Scaffold look at the special case of networks with an infinite number of parameters, which in principle also go through infinitely many training rounds. Generally, it has been shown for the longer time that the prediction of such networks also tend towards a certain optimal solution. Arnold scaffold this as a starting point of deriving mathematical formulas that allows us directly calculate the optimal solution without actually having to train the network. The shortcut enormously reduce the computing time, and I'll explain the time it takes to calculate our solution is only as long as single training round of a small network. Insight into the network. In addition to saving the time, the method developing by the Basel physicists also has the advantage that the derived equation gives some insight into the functioning of the neural network and hence of the physical system under investigation. So far, Arnold Scaffold have tested their method on computer generated data. Soon, they also want to apply the method to real measurement data in the future. This could make it possible to detect as yet unknown phase transition, for instance, in quantum simulators or in novel materials. Okay, moving on towards next topic. Communication less scheme streamlines microgrid setup, simplifies recovery. During a power outrage, during a power outrage or after a disaster. It is hard to beat the simplicity of a diesel generator. Yes, just simply fuel and start it up, so easy, anyone could do it. Of course, renewable microgrids, on the other hand, are not so simple. With a suite of controls, software, and assist coordination, sorry, coordi- ordination, coordination. But the beauty of the renewables is that fuel is free and already available on site, even in remote disaster areas. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory (NREL) has now published a description of the improved control that saved NREL during its own outage, which could make microgrids easy and low cost where they are needed most. The publication titled Unleashing the Frequency Multi Megawatt Demonstration of 100% Renewable Power Systems and with a decentralized communication less control scheme describe a microgrid approach with sidestepped the central controller and expensive and complicated components, and it relies on communication instead using native control of battery, solar, and wind systems. NREL's approach make it possible to assemble device into a microgrid without arduous configuration, relying on just renewable energy and amateur electrical experience, perfect for recoveries in a pinch, said pre Prezi Myslow Krolowitz, NREL engineer and co-developer of the communication-less method, a low-cost recovery source. When NREL experienced a surprise power outage, the laboratory had few options for recovery: no microgrid controller and no pre-configured setup, just a large battery, solar panels, and wind turbines. Other campus or districts, neighborhoods, and homes could find themselves in similar circumstances, and during an outage is no time to fumbling with the complicated configuration like NREL. Communities can now implement a resilient microgrid off the cuff using the control that exists on essentially any energy source. While microgrids are an apparent answer for recovery and resilience, the cost of a controller present a barrier to communities. In 2019, NREL found that microgrid controllers have a mean cost of 155,000 megawatt potential, putting resilient microgrid out of reach of vulnerable areas. Beside cost, controller introduce a tangle of communication and system settings, often FAQ proprietary, are designed to suit particular scenarios. These features can be useful for minimizing energy use and cost, but recoveries often call for a quick and ready option. NREL method prioritizing fails safe startup, foregoing elaborate programs and communications in favor and extendingly basic controls will while still allowing more advanced designs to be built on top. How does it work? NREL scheme is decentralized. The device do not exchange data or issue commands, that is, they are communication less. Instead, devices self-regulate using system frequency as the common language. In short, a battery or other power source form that grid by supplying power at a set of a frequency. Other generator like solar panels and wind turbines follow the grid of watching frequency and charging their power accordingly. The method is nothing too new, so-called droop controls are familiar in standard fossil fuel generator, which is a part of the appeal. The NREL researcher showed that the method works with 100% renewable energy, can be scaled, and is feasible with most and any energy device. With what is innovative is that NREL's method frees the grid frequency from a tight 60 Hz unbound by mechanical rotation. The microgrid frequency can take a wider range. In fact, that range is precisely how the device coordinate without communicating. As frequency rises past 60 Hz, generators reduce power. At even high frequency, the generator reduce their frequency further, rebalancing the frequency around 60 Hz. The system self stabilizes, never overcharging the batteries or underserving the loads. If this sound more difficult than a diesel generator, it might be. It still requires some device programming and parameter settings, which are detailed in the report. NREL's method is the very first step in a design that could become the standard for fail-safe microgrids. Coral Switz said our communication-less method could be natively configured in future devices or possibly certified for easy access by operators with standardized adoption. Microgrids of any type, military bases, hospital backups, even network districts, could count on an unfailing foundation to their day-to-day operation. The frontier the frontier of renewable energy system. At the frontier of power system, engineers are addressing the technical matters of operating the grid with mostly renewables. Outstanding the questions relate to inverters, which are the powered electronic device that interface renewable energy to the grid, and particularly how inverters can perform can form the grid in ways the fossil based resource the traditional have. The Unifi consortium is taking on the inverter challenge with the combined efforts of dozens of research institutions led by NREL. NREL communication less method is one example of the grid forming strategy, the sort that will be needed as a system push towards higher levels of renewables. In proposing the method, NREL is breaking ground into some of the triggered topics that confront Unifi and power system everywhere, such as how to handle grid protection and which control should be essential on grid forming devices. The author approached this question in the report, offering one direction that future energy system can take on the path to decarbonization. Hmm. Moving on towards next topic, green hydrogen. So, and the last topic of the podcast, green hydrogen sounds like a win for developing countries, but cost and transport are problems. Hmm. Hydrogen is Hydrogen is used mainly to make chemicals such as fertilizer and in oil refineries. Most hydrogen in the world today is made from natural gas or coal, method associated with large carbon dioxide emissions. Developed countries are therefore looking to green hydrogen instead, produced using renewable electricity such as a polar wind powered such polar and wind powered energy experts. Rod Crompton and Bruce Young explain green hydrogen potential benefits and challenges. What is hydrogen used for? Global hydrogen demands reached 94 million tons in 2021 and contained energy equal to about 2.5% of global final energy consumption. Only about 0.1% of current global hydrogen production is green, but big expansion are planned. New applications for green hydrogen are also envisaged. Limerick classification is a useful indicator of the potential markets for green hydrogen, since the objective of using green hydrogen is really to reduce carbon dioxide. The application to target first should be those that will yield the largest reduction in emission. Left's ladder shows which they are. The application in the green, the top row, are an efficient use of valuable green hydrogen, but green hydrogen currently costs much more to make than less than clean types of hydrogen, using it to produce 180 million tons per annum of ammonia is required globally for fertilizer production, would be severe knock-on effect on food prices. So it is difficult to see how this transition is going to occur. How is green hydrogen made? Green hydrogen is made from water using renewable green electricity. Equipment called electrolyzers separates the hydrogen from oxygen in water, H2O. The process is called electrolysis. Of course. Green hydrogen production emits no carbon dioxide, but the construction of renewable electricity infrastructure currently using fossil fuels which do not emit carbon dioxide, of course, because it's a combustible material, so it's easily being combustible without leaving any carbon emission. So these are the thing, these are the articles and topics which being covered today, guys. And yes, I've already previously discussed in many of the previous podcasts that we have started a newsletter for you guys to have information that will be provided on the daily basis, and also we are providing newsletter for the free. If you are willing check it, if you are willing to subscribe it, it's given in the link, in every article you have given the line. For more such news and interesting article, uh, subscribe to this newsletter, and we have given the hyperlink. I know many of you have problem with it, but still, uh, it, because we need to sustain this business, of course. So it is a necessary for us to have you guys or to subscribe to our paid newsletter, not just free. Of course, these are otherwise we will going to be again going to be accumulate on the corporate world, where most of the time we have to act like them, we have to write like them. So if you are not willing to being paid from the corporators and by the subscription itself, it will be it give us more motivation, more strength to give those article in our website, and many more information which we even can't even publish on in our website. So uh, it's a request to you guys, otherwise it's your choice. Till then, keep researching, stay curious, stay healthy.